The most qualified candidate doesn't always get the job. In fact, being qualified has very little to do with it. If we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Kim. I'm a big tech recruiter and career advancement expert. I help professionals land higher paying jobs without all the stress or confusion. Before we get into this video, subscribe to my channel. I post videos 2 times a week about resumes, interview tips, anything job search. So if you are looking to get paid in 2026, give my account a follow so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Okay, let's get back to it. So in today's video, we are going to talk about the 3 reasons why the most qualified candidate didn't get the job. The first reason is just timing and external factors. I know you don't like to hear that, but timing plays such a huge part in the job search process. It's now normal for online job postings to receive between 50 and 200 applicants. That's a lot of folks to go through this interview process. So if you apply to a role, it's very likely that someone else applied to a position before you did and they were just considered. Another thing that happens all the time is a manager will absolutely intend to look at external candidates, and then someone already working at the company will see the job posting, express their interest, and the offer goes to them. Happens all the time. The third thing that I notice is you may have applied to a job and then all of a sudden that role is no longer needed. So nobody got that job because they've decided, actually, we're going to eliminate this role altogether or repurpose it for a different skill set that we've identified that we actually need. Folks, hiring managers will think that they need this type of skill. And then as they interview candidates, they realize, actually, we're not evaluating for the right thing. Let's close this and interview for a different skill that better meets the needs of the problems we're trying to solve. The next reason that qualified candidates are not getting the job is that their experience is just buried in their application. This manifests in 2 ways. First is the construction of the resume itself. If you have way too much context or it is not obvious to the recruiter that you have been doing that work and achieving successes in that work, your resume is going to be hard to siphon through. Resumes are read like any sort of document. The eye naturally goes to the top and then scans over to the left, just like if you were reading a book or a piece of paper or what have you. A resume is no different. So if the eye naturally goes to the top, the most critical, most important information for you as a candidate should be near the top. Remember, this role that you've applied to probably has 50 to 200 other people who've also applied. And so you need to make sure that your information stands out in comparison to the rest of those folks. And the best way to do that is by utilizing that top resume real estate, which is the top of the document. The other way that qualified candidates miss out in the application is in those knockout questions. Now, please do not come for me in the comments. Please don't. But most applicant tracking systems have what people often refer to as knockout questions. They're just questions attached to the standard application for that role you're applying to. So when someone is setting up a job posting in the system, they will oftentimes choose knockout questions for the candidate to then self-report information about themselves. Now, these knockout questions are typically aligned with the basic qualifications for the role. Like I said, most job postings get between 50 and 200 applicants. And as someone who goes through applications all day, every day, most of those applicants, especially now in the time of easy apply, most of those applicants aren't qualified. They don't meet the basic qualifications. So the knockout questions is a way to use self-reported information to help expedite the process. Where this trips people up is those questions will read, do you have 3 or more years of experience? And folks will read it as, do you have 3 years of experience? No, I have 8. So they'll put no. But the system will then identify that as you don't meet the basic qualifications. So understand the basic qualifications of the role you're applying to and answer those knockout questions accordingly. Here is the third reason that the most qualified candidate doesn't get the job. They are not communicating their value. The person who gets the job is not the most qualified person. They need to be qualified, but they're not the most qualified necessarily. The person who gets the job is the one who is best able to communicate the return on investment of hiring them in relation to the problems that that team or company is trying to solve. The person who gets the job is the one who is best able to articulate the value of bringing them on. It's not just, I can execute this task. It is, I have this ability to move the needle so that your team can meet its goals, so that your team can see success in solving this problem, so that your team can get ahead of the competition. My previous accomplishments at this other company are an example of the value that I bring. That person, the person who articulates value, that person is the one who gets the job time and time again, not the person with the most years of experience, not the person with the most impressive educational institutions on their resume. The person who says, I can bring value to solve your problems. The person who understands where they fit in the market and how to articulate the value to that hiring team. That's the person that gets the job. That's the one. If you are not articulating value, you're probably not getting the job. Let's do a little bit of math here. There is a position at one of the more exciting companies out there. So let's say that they receive 200 applicants. 200 applicants for one opening, one position. So even if 1/5 of those applicants actually meet the basic qualifications, and truth be told, anecdotally, that's what I'm personally seeing right now in 2026, about 1/5 of applicants that I see actually meet the basic qualifications. I'm talking just the basic qualifications. That is still 40 people that we would need to consider an interview. 40 people who, according to their resume, can execute the work at the level that we need or greater. If a company chooses to interview all 40 of those people, that is an entire work week dedicated to 1-hour phone screens for a position. And that's just first round interviews. If you pushed all of them forward to the next round, that could be a month and a half of interviewing people all day, every day. Most recruiters, especially in the tech space, will have a rec leisure of anywhere between 15 to 20 open requisitions that they're actively working to fill. So 40 candidates times 20, I think you get where I'm going here. It's not realistic to interview every single person who applies. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not to complain about my job. I choose to be a recruiter and I'm thankful to have a job. Trust me, that's not what this is. I promise you. I'm just sharing this math with you so that you, as a job seeker, can have a strategic advantage to understand your target audience. It's just like marketing. You need to understand your target audience if you're selling shoes. It's no different than if you're selling a skill set to a company. It's no different. You need to understand the pain points of your target audience and then work within those accordingly to position yourself as a solution to their problems. And you can't understand what the problems are unless you understand your target audience. So I have just walked through for you a day in the life of your target audience because the recruiter is the first point of contact at almost every company. And trust me, the recruiter wants you to get the job, I assure you. I just told you how many requisitions we have to fill. Trust me, we want this to work. If anybody wants to be fairy godmother, matchmaker out of this whole process, it is your recruiter. I promise you. I promise you, because there is no better feeling than saying you got the job. And then the second best feeling is clicking position unposted because it was filled. I want to pull back the curtain and let you look in and get a true understanding of what things are like on the other side of the application. And that's why this is important. I know that as a job seeker, you control very little in this interview process. It's probably frustrating and you probably don't like it very much. And frankly, I don't like it for you either. I wish everybody could get the job, but if there's only one opening, only one person gets the job. And since there is very little in what you as a candidate can control, it's important to focus on the things that you can control. So, as a recruiter, this is my advice of how to do that. You need to remove the guesswork in your application. You've got to make it clear I can do this job. I've been doing this job and I have seen successes in doing this job. Make sure that you are showcasing wins, accomplishments with quantifiable information that are relevant for the type of work that you are applying to do. So look at the roles that you're applying to. What are the typical pain points in a team like that? And talk about the wins that you have in addressing similar pain points. That will remove any of the guesswork around, does this person know actually how to do this job? Or are they just limited to executing tasks? You also want to flesh out the scope and the scale of the work that you were doing as well. Your scope of work is just the breadth of tasks that you do on the day to day. If you do very limited scope of work, but it's deep and you're a specialist, you want to indicate that with numbers. If you're more of a generalist, that's going to be a wider scope of work. And then the next thing is scale. Scale is basically how many? Were you supporting a team of 5? Or were you supporting a team of 50? Or is what you built initially made to support so many transactions per second, but the way that you built it, it could easily hold significantly more transactions per second. 2 out of the 3 major points that I've talked about today are actually in your control. You are able to optimize your application and you are able to communicate value. You have it. You possess the value. You have the wins already. You're just not positioning it in a strategic way that is going to catch the eye of the resume reader. That's the change that needs to happen. Or you're not sharing the right wins, the ones that most closely align with the potential new work that you would be doing. So you can make those changes too. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. And I know that this market's pretty tough right now. So I will also just share this one more thing. Remember, you just need one offer. You just need one. That's all you need. And then everything changes and it makes all of this work worth it. I promise you. If you like this video, give it a save or share it with someone who's currently looking for work, especially if they were recently impacted by a reduction in force. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again next time. Happy job hunting. Bye-bye.